We begin this morning a sermon series that I've titled The End of the World as We Know It, ? Really, is it the end of the world as we know it? And to begin to set the context for this series, I've chosen a passage that's a little unusual for this time of year. We're used to hearing this maybe during Lent, but I'm going to pull this out today as we begin to move forward and try to answer the question, is it really the end of the world as we know it? If you'd like to turn in your New Testament to the Gospel of John, we'll be looking at chapter 18, verses 33 through 37. Now, in this passage, this is really the part of the Passion story. This is really toward the end of Jesus' life. He's been arrested. He's brought before Pilate, and Pilate has heard all about Jesus. He's been very popular with some of the amazing miracles that he's been purported to do. And Pilate is interested in this fella. He's heard news been brought to him all about these wonderful things. He wants to check it out for himself. So he has a private interview, a private dialogue with Jesus. So I want to pick up in the middle of this dialogue, and that is verse 33. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priest have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked them, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again, and he told them, "I find no case against him." Again, may God bless the reading and the hearing of God's holy word. Last week, we had one of the rare occasions in my family when we were all together. Rachel was in town, Kara was around, Elisa was here, and it gets harder, as families grow older, keeping that family unit together, at least meeting together for meals and things like that. It becomes more difficult, and that meeting together with meals has always been a tradition of my family. We made it a point to always having our evening meal together, all of us around the table, and having that kind of talk and all the things that goes on. Well, last Sunday, we had one of those opportunities. Finally, everybody was in town, everybody was available, so we took advantage of that and to relive a bit of the nostalgic past, of having the whole family together with us. So, but it's hard. Even though we try to do that, it's hard these days to actually have those intimate times around the table, because the truth is, today, you're never really alone, are you? Here's what I mean by that. In this tech-driven, phone-connected society, it seems there are never-ending interruptions from uninvited guests. It's interesting that Jerry was talking about ants as the uninvited guest. I think you know where I'm headed with this. Everyone today seems to have one of these, right? Just about everybody. And electronic devices, it's constantly signaling messages. It's ringing, it's dinging, it's chirping. One chirp during the message last service. It's chirping, or it's playing your favorite TV tune that you've programmed in. So I don't know how they did it, but somehow I think that the companies inserted a chip in these electronic devices that have a hypnotic effect on us today. And it's this message that comes out so loud and clear. It says, "You must answer me. You must check the message." It has this, you have no power but to give in and see, not only see, interpret and respond to the message. So even when we go to these meals, sometimes there seems to be 20 uninvited guests that come along with us. So I had this great idea that I said, this time we're going to go out to eat together. Everybody leave all of their electronic devices on the counter. And it's the first time I can remember since these things were invented that nobody had an electronic device. It was wonderful. We actually, you know what we did? Talked, right? That old-fashioned thing, you actually talk around the table. I don't know if it's just me, but even with all these technological advances that give us so much information and have connected us so much, there seems to be, even with that, this sense in America today, amongst people of all kinds, a sense of unease. And I think I've become increasingly aware of a growing sense of worry and even hopelessness among the American people. It's a very strange thing. And I guess I understand some of that. In one sense, the world seems very unstable today. Governments and banking systems are failing. Horrific murders are broadcast right into our homes through electronic devices by the likes of ISIS. And here at home, we've experienced terrorism at marathons and movie theaters, and even in church Bible studies. Things we thought would never happen are happening. And just this week, I don't know if anybody here is a government employee, but they just announced a couple of days ago that the government systems have been hacked and all of the government employees' personal information is now available. So Elisa's a teacher. She said, is that me? I sort of, no, I said, you're state government, you're safe. But it's worrisome, isn't it? People are worried. I feel it. Boomers are worried about their retirement. I think they're worried. I'm one, so worried who's going to take care of us as we get older. And millennials are worried about limited job opportunities. There are not as many as there were. Wages are lower. And I think even some of the millennials are questioning, why did I take out all of that school debt? Why did I do that? I don't know that the reward at the end is going to be worth it financially. And some statistics report, they're saying that these folks are going to be the first in maybe 100 years to actually achieve less than their parents. And that's worrisome. And Christians aren't immune from this kind of worry and these tales of woe. I've heard so much, I'm kind of getting tired of it at this point, about the demise of the denominational church. You know who the denominational church is? Us. Okay, Presbyterians, Baptists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, Methodists. They're saying, it's over, on decline. We're told Christianity's on decline. Christianity is falling apart. And we do know that church attendance nationwide is declining. Now, we've even seen it here at Markham Woods. Even though our membership has grown, it grew last year. We were one of the few churches that grew last year. Worship attendance, not just here, it's all churches, is down. And people begin to go, they wonder what's going on. It just looks and feels all of those things together. They look and they feel so bad. It just seems like, is all the joy just going away? Is the world really collapsing around us? And then you get the preacher types that love this because it's their favorite topic of doom and gloom. They pronounce the approach of the eschaton. You know what that means? It's the end of the world, end times, the apocalypse. I just received, honest truth, just received an email Thursday warning pastors. It said this, warning about end days survival. And here was the headline. Massive downfall that will wipe out 49 of 50 American states. Read more And if you click, you get the story. Now, aren't you really glad you came today? You should feel really good. It's worship, and we're having a great time, had a great duet, set up this great message. I'm beginning, as I said, this series called The End of the World as We Know It. It's a question. Is it the end of the world as we know it? And I think it is a great question, and it's a question I think every generation has asked. There's always been one voice or another that offers the doom and the gloom, and here's the end. And if you just take the summary, I spent a little time on that this morning, but if you just take the summary of what I offered to you, you could make that case, couldn't you? Maybe they're right. Maybe it is the end of the world. And maybe Christianity is, there's some kind of, something's happening and it's on decline in America. It's slipping away. Have you felt that way? Have you thought about that? For many, the techno media view of our country and of our faith and of Christianity is the only source or the main source for facts and for truth about the state of everything. And if you're only listening to that continual drumbeat of the media, including social media, you really do begin to think it's really bad out there. It's really bleak. It's really hopeless. However, there's another side to the story, isn't there? As Christians, as people of faith, we're supposed to be more discerning than that. Because tech messaging, if you look at the title today, it's Mediated Messaging in the New Millennium. This mediated messaging isn't always true, and it isn't always fully correct. Just because it comes to you on a device. I call it device determining truth. If this is it, then maybe we are in trouble. Is it fact? Is it true? What about faith? What are the effects on us today? Do we know where the mediated word is really coming from that pushes our view of Christianity in America today, or pushes our culture? I want you to think along with me today as we get started. We've been so connected, haven't we? We were so connected to each other. We're closer than we've ever been. And in many cases, this is wonderful, isn't it? It's great to be able to know something about someone on the other side of the world. When things were happening here at the church when I was in Israel, I used one of these. It was amazing. I was learning all about what was going on back here in real time. That's wonderful. That's great. But sometimes it may be too much. We can learn about or observe just about anything. We can react to just about anything. We can join in a fight against something. We can join in a fight for something. We can learn in a few seconds about the human condition across the world. That's a lot of information to be coming at us every minute of every day. And in case you think I'm maybe making a little bit more of this than I should be doing, just try to go anywhere and do anything with somebody from the age of 8 to 40 or maybe 50. And you know what you'll see? They'll have one of these. And I'm not going to embarrass you and have you raise your hand if you have one in worship today. I don't bring mine in worship. I did it today as just a prop. But you'll see folks with these. We're connected to them and we're checking them. It's that hypnotic, it's that chip in there that makes us check and see and find out what's going on and read and digest. A report just said 50% of people in America sleep with these. A portion with them in their hands. Now, percentages tell me one of you in here sleeps with your phone in your hand. Just saying. That's what percentages would lead us to believe that. Mediated messaging is powerful. And it really matters who's sending, who's delivering the message, where it's coming from, how much we trust the message. And along with all this new connected high-speed communication that technology offers, I think we have to be careful because some of it comes with a price. That is, it has the power to mislead, to mischaracterize. It has the power to create in us perspectives that may not be based on truth and God's word. We may come to conclusions about things that aren't based in fact at all. I mentioned that the smallest detail can be found out just by a click. Just a click. You'll see images that will convey a truth or a message. 10 years ago, just in 10 years, think this through with me. 10 years ago, there was no YouTube. 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, there was no Facebook. 10 years ago, there was no Twitter. 10 years ago, there were no iPhones. 10 years ago, there was no Skyping. And 10 years ago, there were no blogs. All of that's happened in 10 years. And that means so much has come at us. And much of it is bad. Much of it's a plight, somebody's plight or pain or horror or evil. And I think if you look at that, you begin to say it is the end of the world as we know it. But is it really? And that's the question I want to look at through this series. Is it really the end of the world as we know it, according to God? Or have we been convinced by another's mediated message? It's not just us that receives mediated messages and then acts on them as if they are fact and truth. I'm not reading the passage today, but we know the story very well of the Israelites. They have escaped from Egypt, and they are right there. They are literally on the border of the Promised Land. It didn't take them long to get there. They're on the border of the Promised Land, and so Moses sends in some folks to kind of spy out the situation. They do, and they return, and what do they report? Bad news. They report bad news. It's terrible news. The Promised Land is there, but somebody's in there already. There are giants in the land, they said. There's giants, and they're so powerful we couldn't possibly defeat them. And so the spies come back, they mediate that message to Moses, and you know what happens? The people hear the report. They hear the mediated report, and they believe it. And they start to say, oh no, it's the end of the promise as we know it. And it cost them 40 years. They were right there. And the mediated message based on untruths cost them 40 more years. Have you ever believed something someone said, especially in the past year, that they said was true, and you reacted to it, and later you found out it wasn't true at all? It was funny. There was, I came in a few weeks ago, and somebody came in and reported to me, did you hear Pastor Karen's leaving the church, and she's found a new church and she's leaving? I said, well, that's news to me. Have you talked to Pastor Karen about that? But they were all worried and believed it. Have you ever received a message like that? I read a story about a little girl who she loved grits, and she grew up eating grits. She must have grown up in the South, because I know you Northerners, you don't go for the grits. But she'd been eating grits all this time, and finally she just sort of wondered, I wonder what grits really are. So she's 12 years old, and she asked a friend, what really are grits? And he goes, you want to know the truth? She said, yeah, I really want to know. So he kind of grinned with a big smile, and he said, you really want to know the truth? Grits, he said, are small bugs that live in colonies on the surfaces of lakes. And so it's like algae. And so they screen that off every summer, and they lay that out and they let it dry, and they harvest. They harvest those, they take the shells off and harvest the material inside. He goes, really good, right? And she's hearing that, and her stomach's kind of churning. She believed it. She really believed it. I found a really thoughtful quote about this. Error does not become truth because it's widely accepted, and truth does not become error even when it stands alone. So what's the real truth about what we see in the world? What's the real truth about Christianity in America? What's the real truth? Is it the end of the world as we know it? That's what we're going to be looking at. I'm curious. I want to know. And I think Jesus might have something to say about truth. He certainly did 2,000 years ago, And I think those words that I read to you today from John's gospel are just as, they may be more relevant today about what really is true and what is truth. You remember what I read? Jesus is talking to Pilate, and Pilate's laying out all this wonderful stuff. So you're a king, you're amazing, you can do these amazing things. And Jesus says, well, is this your observation? Are these your ideas? Or did you just hear it? Was it just mediated from some other source, from somebody else? Are you just buying into whatever they're telling you? And we might say today, did you just read somebody's blog and you just believed it? About what's happening? About who I am? About what's going on in this present time? And Jesus begins to offer him the truth. My kingdom, he says, isn't of this world, in fact. What you see may not be the truth. He says there's something greater going on in the world. There's something greater going on in this moment than what you perceive. Look at verse 32. You don't have to look it up. I'm going to paraphrase it for you. Jesus said, I've come into the world to bear witness to the truth. You don't have to have it mediated to you. I'm going to bear witness to it. It's not going to be defined by others or spun or blogged about or interpreted by somebody else. I am the truth for you to see. And Jesus says, everyone, that includes us today, everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. In other words, it's available to everyone. It's not hidden away. Verse 38, Pilate says, what really is the truth? I can't figure it out, in other words. Pilate is responding to Jesus, pointing out and declaring exactly where truth can be found. Pilate still doesn't quite grasp hold of it. He wants to trust the mediated messages and not actually Jesus himself. It's a great question today. What is truth? When you go home and you watch the news, or you look at your electronic device, or you go on the internet and you go on Facebook and you see things reported, what is the truth? There's so much available to us. There are experts that want to tell you all about it. Pilate's question is still a valid one, and it's going to be the one we're exploring over the next couple of weeks. And it's this: do we believe a conveyed media-driven truth as Christian people? Or is there a truth that's more valid for us, that gives us a proper perspective, that isn't full of doom and gloom, but it's actually full of Jesus' voice of truth? So if you want to know if it's truly the end of the world as we know it, if you really want to know what truth is, you have to come back next week. Amen.